I understand Jimmy Murukuona nekuongora zvokuitika kunokuwadzana.
As you can see kuti vanhu vari kubuda vongoma kuseni vanhu vamhenge vasiri kunyatsobuda zvakanaka asi pauya president advocate Nelson Chamisa vanova president so we are hoping kuti zvechokwadi by the end of the day panopero vanhu kuvhota vanhu vanenge vabuda vakawanda manumbers edu taona kuti aakuincreasa kusvika pasvika president so we are hoping kuti tichaita manumbers akawanda and victory yedu yeCCC ezinokuwadzana kuti tagara tinotora kuwadzana saka hatisi kuzotya nekuwadzana seat yagara redu. I think ndichada kuwedzerawo zvokuti vasati vanatsorejista vasati vakasta mavotes tine vanhu vari mundima izvezvo vari kuti vanhu ngavafambe vachinorejista vachinokasta mavhoti avo so tine timu yeCCC iri musha wese iri kuencourage vanhu vese kuti endai munorejista kuvhota.
Pane matambudziko here amati masangana nawo so far or any zvichemo or zvinyunyuto zvamunogona muinazvo?
Challenge yatakasangana nayo ndeyane-zuro. We have a challenge command center panova pakuwadzana council pakauya police pakuda maballot box but pakauya police yakanga isina uniform of which takaita kwire yekuti why police ida kuexporta maballot box isina uniform so pakatora about almost 2 hours vasati vadzoka vachitwa kunochinja mahembe dzavanga vakapfeka vanouya nepolice uniform so from there isusu takanga takamira takati mabox abude vauya zvechokwadi vakazouya vapfeka uniform but panga pasina presiding officer weZEC takati haabude zvekare we need a presiding officer weZEC so that tizive kuti maballot box abuda pane police neZEC so from there I think zvinhu zvese zvakazofamba zvakanaka tabva taescorta maballot box edu neteam yedu yanga iri paground kusvika zvaenda mapolling centers. I think ndo challenge yatatawana so far.
Pari zvino mungatitsaurirawo here kuti vanhu vangana munogona kufungidzira vavhota izvezvi?
As for now I think the highest number yandanzwa so far as from morning semunhu uri kutendera it's about 84. That's the highest number yandaona as per block. So it's from 84 I think tino kuma 60-30 zvichienda zvidaro but manamba edu I think ndofunga panguva yapresident mukuona kuti manamba edu akuwedzera saka in 30 minutes time I think tichange tane manamba akati wandei.
Aiwa tinotenda kuita basa.
Okay. Are you ready? Are you good to go? What's a pen? Pen. Good evening, ZESN ERC Chairperson, Mr. Andrew Makoni, and good evening to Mr. Manda, Mrs. Barbara Bebe, and good evening, members of the press. Our sincere is going to unpack the observation findings of the March 26 by-election 2022. So I safely say it's a preliminary statement that will be unpacked to the fourth wing of the state. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to reiterate also our apology from ERC as well as from ZESN for holding you in, and our analysis of this report or analysis of events was also work in progress, in the sense of we were working on it as we were receiving the results. The result has been that you were prejudiced, but we are sorry about that, and thank you for your patience very much. Okay, I'm to do an analysis of things on the ground. So this is a preliminary, is Andrew Makoni, the chairperson of ZESN, and of course the director of ERC, as well as Ellen Tingane, also of ZESN. I will just give you a portion of our report at Mr. Makoni. 22 Zimbabweans across 28 constituencies and 122 local authorities went to the polls to cast their votes for the long-delayed parliamentary and local authority by-elections due to the indefinite suspension of the elections, by-elections, which was occasioned by statutory instrument 225A of 2020, which was actually cited as public health, COVID-19 prevention, containment and treatment amendment regulations 2020 number 4. Ordinarily, in line with section 158 subsection 3 of the Constitution and sections 39 and 121 of the Electoral Act, by-elections to fill in vacancies are held within 90 days of the vacancy having arisen. For these by-elections, the Election Resource Center and Zimbabwe Election Support Network deployed more than 400 trained and accredited election day observers, including deployment 206 observers to 6 priority constituencies. That's Binga North, Chibi South, Ebwe, Kwekwe, Central, Mrewa South, Mtasa South, where sample-based observations were conducted using a statistically representative sample of polling stations. Given the timing, it was not possible to conduct SBOs for all 28 by-elections. These 6 constituencies were selected to provide a geographic spread and to reflect the political diversity of the country. So this statement on the conduct of the elections is based on ERC and ZESN's direct observation of the process of voting, counting and posting of results for these mentioned 6 constituencies, and follows ERC. We've also looked at the political environment during the pre-election period in Bizo Kwekwe district and the election-related intimidation. ERC and ZESN unreservedly condemn any form of violence and attempt to limit electoral competition through the restriction of campaign constitution. The ERC and ZESN noted activities that qualify as vote buying during the campaign period, which included the use of food enough ahead of the by-elections. This shortcoming in public engagement, which when viewed alongside the administrative of the two, has resulted in confusion amongst voters in the affected areas. Stakeholders have also expressed concern over the quality and integrity of official voters' roll for analysis. Overall, ERC and ZESN observers reported that the election day was peaceful generally and generally well administered, but with concerns about community cohesion in rural areas undermining the right to vote. Of the 6, the results for Ebwe and Mrewa South reflect the ballots cast. However, it is not possible of the election and the legitimacy of the outcome. ERC and ZESN will verify the results for Binga and North, Chibi South, and Pepe Central when they have been announced. ERC and ZESN are still processing the data received from its additional stationary and mobile observers and will provide the findings from all the complementary observations. Only voters under maybe the heading of voter verification, only voters with their names appearing on the voters' roll and who had appropriate identity checked against the polling station-based voters' rolls and identification verified and identification verified before being permitted to vote. On indelible ink, ERC and ZESN in their situational statement, ZESN and ERC observers reported concerns over the quality of indelible ink being used by ZEC. Observers found that at 100% of polling stations to vote twice or thrice or to vote again. On the question of voters being turned away, observers reported that there were numerous instances where 25 or more persons were turned away and not allowed to vote at some polling stations. Conducted SBO, high numbers of voters turned away were recorded. 29% of observers in Binga, North constituency, Matabele North, 25% of voters, of observers in Epworth constituency, Harare, Metropolitan Province, and 26% of observers in Pepe Central constituency reported seeing many voters being turned away. On the issue of assisted voters, ERC and ZESN observers noted instances of high numbers of people being assisted to vote. In the 6 constituencies observed under the SBO, the constituencies where observers reported instances of many individuals requesting assistance in casting their ballots included Epworth, 59%, Chibi South, 36%, and Binga North, 59%. Then on closing and counting, all observers were permitted to observe closing of polls and counting of the ballots at all polling stations where they were deployed. ERC and ZESN observers noted some isolated incidents in which individuals without authorization to enter polling stations did so. Further observers reported that before counting all ballot seals, all ballot seals were confirmed to be untampered with before counting commenced. On the party agents aspect, political parties are key stakeholders in the electoral processes, and their presence at polling stations increases trust and accountability in the election. During the counting processes, observers reported 100% of CCC and ZANU-PF were present, while 63% of agents present were from the MDC alliance. In all circumstances, none of the observers reported party agents requesting for recounts of ballots. On the other issues that are going to come, I'll just give you a little summary here before my colleague Mr. Makoni comes in to take it further there. So there's been a table on distribution of presence of agents representing the top 3 parties. The top 3 parties, CCC, ZANU-PF, MDC Alliance. This is not necessarily the order of their big top, you know. CCC had 99% coverage. ZANU-PF had 100% coverage. Then MDC Alliance had 62% coverage. Then the results that were posted, 97% polling stations posted the results from V11 outside. Sorry, let me take that again. 97% polling stations posted the results from V11 outside for the public to see. While party agents were given copies of the same in almost all the reported polling stations, 6 cases of not providing agents with V11 forms was reported in Mashonaland East and 4 were reported in Harare. On the question of this issue of community cohesion, ERC and ZESN observed recorded high turnout as well as high vote share for a single party at multiple rural polling stations across Murewa South and Mtasa South when compared to their respective constituency turnout and vote shares. These are indications of, these are indicators of community cohesion. For Murewa South, the average turnout was approximately 49%, but for those polling stations, turnout was 60% and above. Similarly, from Mtasa South, the average turnout was approximately 35%, but for these polling stations, turnout was over 50%. For both constituencies, the vote share for ZANU-PF was over 90%, much higher than for other polling stations. This pattern calls into question where voters were able to freely participate. I want to take that again. This pattern calls into questions whether voters were able to freely participate in the process and if the results truly reflect their preferences. There's another table here on which reflects the high turnout and ZANU-PF vote share than average in Mrewa South and in Tasa South. I will not bore you with the figures as well as the percentages here. I will defer to my colleague, Mr. Andrew, to take over from there.
Thank you, Trust. So I will take you through our service an advanced election day observation methodology, which allows ERC and ZESN to confidently comment on the voting and results tabulation process for all polling stations in the selected constituencies, including those that did not have observers, including an independent verification of the results announced by ZEC itself. ERC and ZESN selected 6 priority constituencies to deploy the SBO methodology for the by-election, which included Binga North, which is in Matabeleland North Province, Chivi South in Masvingo Province, Epworth, Harare Metropolitan, Kwekwe Central, which is in Midlands Province, Mrewa South, which is in Mashonaland Province, and Mutasa South, which is in Manicaland. These 6 constituencies were selected to provide geographic spread and to reflect the political diversity of the country. So I'll start with Binga North. Our SBO observers were deployed to 25% of the polling stations in the Binga North constituency. And we do have a comparison of the results that have been posted so far by ZEC with our SBO estimates. You know, how it works is that we'll then be able to see whether the results as announced by ZEC fall within our estimates. So, for instance, if we take Binga North, as I indicated, candidate by candidate, the MDCA candidate, the result which is announced by ZEC is that they scored 356, which is 1.9% of the total overall result. And when we then look at our estimates, we estimated that MDC Alliance would score about 1.2% of the estimated vote. That is the lower limit, and the upper limit was 2.6%. So the ZEC result then falls within the estimate of our SBO. Then when we then go to the independent Bukuli discipline, he had 220 votes, and that constituted 1.2% of the overall vote in the constituency. Our lower estimate, SBO estimate, was 0.8%, and our upper limit for this candidate was 1.6%. So the 1.2% falls within our estimate. Then ZANU-PF candidate Munsaka Kudakwashe, ZEC 42.4% of the overall voter count in the constituency. In terms of our estimates, before we deployed our methodology, we estimated that the lower score would be 36.4% for the ZANU-PF candidate, and the upper limit was going to be 46.8%. So the 42.4% falls within our lower and upper limits. And when we come to UDA, the UDA candidate Clive Muzamba scored 136 votes, and that was 0.7% of the overall result. We had estimated that he would get between 0.4% and 1%. So the 0.7% falls within the SBO estimates. Sibanda Dubeko Prince of the CCC scored 10,120 votes, and that constituted 53.8% of the vote in the constituency. Our estimate was that the CCC candidate was going to get a lower score of 49.4% of the vote, and we'd estimated a maximum of 59.8%. So what ZEC has announced again fall within the SBO estimate. As for Epworth, our sample-based observers were deployed to 50% of the polling stations. The comparison again, I must say that when we look at the candidates who participated, again fall within that estimate. I will not bore you with those who scored less. Perhaps I would concentrate on the two key candidates here. When we then share with you, our statement, you then begin to see the estimate. So Etheridge Kurewa of the CCC, got 8,283 votes, and that was 41.8% of the overall voting in the constituency. In our SBO estimate, we had estimated that the CCC would get 38.9%, the lower limit, and the maximum of 45.5%. And therefore, the result announced by ZEC, which is 41.8%, fall within that estimate. And for the ZANU-PF candidate, Makari Zalera Azinei, she scored 10,248, which is 51.7% of the vote. Our estimates were between 47% and 54%. And therefore, the result, which was again announced by ZEC, falls within that particular SBO estimates. Then Murewa South constituency, again focusing on the main two contenders there. The ZANU-PF candidates scored 11,125 votes, and that constituted 83% of the ballot. We had estimated that the top figure, I do not have the lower limit there, but the top, the highest estimate there would be 83.9%. The candidate scored 83%, and therefore that score is within range. But I think with the rider, because we've had my colleague speaking to some voting pattern which we will be further investigating. Then the CCC candidate scored 1,720 votes, which constituted 13% of the vote. We had actually estimated again 13% of the vote, and as a result, that estimate actually is on point with what the CCC candidate received. Since the SBO deployed to 100% in this particular constituency of the polling stations that that explains why there are no lower and upper limits. So we just said that bit as I indicated. Mutasa South, for Mutasa South, it is not possible to verify the result from Mutasa South stations. We are seeking for one candidate as a whole, and 140 legitimacy. Mutasa South got 3%, Chida 7%, MDCA 1%, North was 51%, MDCA, the turnout was 37%, and This is our preliminary on some of the SBO Central, one of them. And as a result, we cannot complete from ZEC.
So self-explanatory.
Okay. Along the lines of voter management.
That's a very important question. So they will be able to answer the story. So we'll continue to sessions where there was this. We are getting reports that the way is quoted the turnout that is in yes, she does the primary polling, particularly explaining the vote share.
The vote share as compared to the winning to the polling stations. So when you look at communities and they know each other, and then in rare opportunities.
Yes, you can.
Let me answer that. The observation methodology is project the results of an election without necessarily every polling station. So this is not voting. So what we do is that we start off by sampling, but we actually then determine how many, that's very important. You cannot have preferences that you need to put in Excel that allows you to pick specific polling stations, not then picking and choosing methodology. You are able then to project what else is happening in terms of trends. So